Darlings, I have been here only 2 weeks and we are sprucing up the joint. I've got mannequin parts over here and a live plant over here. That's what I do, darlings. I make things better. It's Monday, July 20th, and it's a new episode of New Job, Who Dis? Welcome, one and all. I am so happy that you have made it through another weekend, and we are here on a Monday for you. I am your host and hostess with the mostest and the most. I am your hostess with the mostest. I am Halston Body Prism of Excellence, manager of the stars, including Heather Moreau on Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Please watch it online, on the Fight TV app. Find it wherever you can. But we're not here to talk about that right now. We're going to find how we got to this place. There is a path. There is a way that I had to follow to get through 25 plus years of working labor, finding jobs, hustling, making money wherever I can to survive, and learn and grow. That's the biggest thing. That is part of the reason why I'm doing this podcast, is because I feel like I have been through so many weird and different experiences in my job and career trajectory that I feel like it's time to share all the struggles, all of the hustle, all the pain, all the failures that got me to where I am right now in 2000, the year of someone's Lord, 2020. We are here to talk about how did we get here. And there is a long and winding path, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening. If you're listening on the Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on the Podbean network, Podbean app, you can download that as well. Thank you for tuning in here on YouTube as well, on my lovely channel here at Halston Body. It's been a road so far. So let's connect. Let's dial back and have a moment to gather the foundation that we've laid so far. You are just joining us here. Welcome. We are 4 episodes in the can, and we are about to approach job number 5. Now, the foundation that has been laid involves a number of things. Just to keep everybody on the same page, in 2 years' time, since I was 14 years old, I have had 4 jobs thus far. Paperboy, while I was 14. When I turned 15, I ended up having 2 dishwasher jobs, eventually at the same time, and it laid a foundation. And then the next job I got was a retail job at a record store called Radio Doctors. So far in 2 years, I've done a manual labor job of carrying papers and collecting money and kind of doing an entrepreneurial thing for myself, learning how to be responsible with money at a young age and making sure you're taking care of customers and handling the manual labor of delivering papers. And then we moved on to 2 dishwasher jobs. Again, more manual labor, more carrying, more heavy lifting, more all the prep stuff, all the things that you do in kitchens, and you learn the back end. Foundation laid, right? Heavy lifting, walking to work, sweat, dirt, grime, taking care of business. All swept away for the glamour of a record store job at the ripe age of 15. What a life I was living at 15. So the foundation has been laid. I know how to get jobs. I do not quit a job unless I have a new one. That is also a rule that I lived by for many years. Do not quit your day job unless you have another one lined up. That was a rule that I kept in my pocket for, I want to say almost 20 years. And the dedication that I had to these jobs, I want to make sure that's very apparent. I did not hate these jobs. There was never a time where I hated yes, there were moments. We all have moments in everyday jobs where we're like, ugh, I just don't want to work today. And I had those moments, but it wasn't because of the job. Nobody was treating me badly. Nothing was happening at work that made me feel like I didn't want to be there. I was genuinely bright-eyed and curious and learning and, not afraid of getting my hands dirty. And then, of course, landing the retail position at Radio Doctors was a dream come true. So far, in 2 years in the workforce, and another reminder, the legal working age in Wisconsin was officially supposed to be 16, but I was on a work permit. So I started early. Another foundation that was definitely being planted was money. I liked money. I didn't feel myself feeling rich. I was not making any sort of mad bank as a $3.35 an hour dishwasher or as a $3.50 retail clerk working part-time. So I wasn't necessarily rolling in the dough, but the independence to be able to go out and buy baseball cards or go to the arcade on a Saturday with my friends and go across the street and enjoy a Ponderosa meal and then go back to the arcade and buy my own tokens and not have to ask my parents for money was so liberating. It was fantastic. I loved every minute of it. So there was freedom. There was freedom with having that teenage money. I could buy my own music. I could buy CDs and albums and all the stuff that teenagers love to buy. It was great. The other foundation that is also being laid here is hard work. I was working 6 days a week during high school. Days, when I say days, I mean 4 hours after school at the most. It wasn't, I wasn't pulling like 2 double long shifts and I'm working 2 full-time jobs and going to school. I wasn't doing anything like that. However, it was very apparent that I was setting a foundation to hustle and work very hard to get what I wanted. Because I wanted money and I wanted baseball cards and I wanted, to buy the Sega Master System and I wanted to be able to afford the things that I wanted to afford to enjoy my teenage years. Now you're thinking, why on earth would you leave your dream job that you can't even believe that you even have at 15 years old, working in a retail record store? Why would you leave that job? As I said in the last episode, I feel there was a slight bit of side-eye sourness pointed towards me because as I had mentioned before, I walked home and found a lot of broken cassette security plastics that all our cassettes were in. The fingers weren't being pointed at me as the thief because I was a CD guy. I had a brand new CD player. Why would I steal cassettes? I didn't even have a cassette player that I was fond of using or continually using. I was a big fan of listening to rock radio on my Walkman, and yes, it had a cassette player, but I was a big fan of making mixtapes, and I wasn't a cassette buyer. I was a CD buyer or an album buyer, so I wasn't looked at as the thief, but I felt there was some sort of cloud over me. And because of the theft, and because it wasn't in a great location, it was a tiny store. I wish they would have thought that out, to be honest. When they decided to become a retail establishment in Wauwatosa, they picked one of the worst spots. And I feel like it was just because it was there. They just like, oh, here's a spot, we'll use it. Terrible place for a record store. If they had used the hair salon, which was in the same strip mall, it might have been a different story because it was a pretty big space, but the space we were in, tiny. All in all, that being wrapped up in a big ball, my hours weren't plentiful. I was working maybe, I want to say 10 hours a week, and it wasn't as fun not working as much because I was losing track of what was going on in the store. I wasn't as in tune with the releases and things happening because I was only there like 1, maybe 2 days a week. So the dream job, while still a dream job, was not as financially plentiful as I'd liked. So let's turn the page. The page turns because of a couple reasons. One, my 16th birthday is approaching. Time to find legal work that I can just go out and find another job if I really wanted to, and I don't have to chase down a lot of paperwork or make people question whether or not a 15-year-old should be working for them. I was of legal age. And the best part about that is I've had 4 jobs up until that point. So when I'm walking into my next job with any level of application, they're like, wow, you've got some experience in things. You're not just some fresh face, zit-nosed kids who, I'm in my first job. Like, I already had a little bit of a foundation. So getting that next job wasn't as much of a challenge. The other part was that I had a core group of about 6 friends in high school. I was not a big popular kid. I didn't have everybody and their mother signing my yearbook at the end of every high school year. I was kind of the kid that mostly kept to himself. I wasn't quiet, but I definitely was not, one of the loner type that, stayed quiet and didn't talk to anybody. I was trying to be social, but at the end of the day, I was not a popular kid. I wasn't unpopular. I fit somewhere in that middle where people kind of, if I didn't make a splash in my last year or 2 of high school, people might have forgotten about me. And maybe they still have. I don't care. The point is, during high school, I had a small group of friends that I kept very tight. And I didn't try to branch out and go to parties I didn't belong to. And we did some things together. We went to the football games and we hung out, but most of us did the same stuff. We all loved the same stuff. Video games, role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons, all of those types of games, and pro wrestling. All of my friends that I hung out with loved watching pro wrestling. We were big-time WWF fans. This was the cartoon era of Hulk Hogan. This was that early to mid 80s and then into the later 80s, just character and colors and Hogan and Ultimate Warrior and Macho Man and I could go on for hours, and I will eventually. But the point of it is, all my friends that I hung out with, the 5 friends, and one friend didn't really get into it, but the 5 of us were into it. We watched the wrestling. We talked about it the next day. We, called each other during it. It was our soap opera. It was our teenage, this is what we were into. And we went to the shows and the whole 9 yards. I'll tell you more about that. You'll find out more about me and how I got into wrestling, or how did it all begin. But at the end of the day, the wrestling fandom really, really ramped up around this time. So me and my friends were all cool and hanging out a lot. We played street sports. We had sleepovers. We hung out after school. We hung out before school. We were just inseparable for the most part of all the 5 of us. And with a 6th person that we're not even going to talk about him. There was another person in the mix, but just not as a strong player of the 5 or 6 of us. And so a couple of my friends who were older than me by 1 year, because remember, if you watched the earlier episode or listened, I skipped 2nd grade. So everybody that I was in high school with in 1988 was 1 year older than me. I was 15 going on 16, and everybody was already 16, eventually, or soon enough, in junior year, going to go on 17, and I hadn't even reached 16 yet. Everyone started getting cars before I did. Everyone got jobs in there. Like, the people who didn't get the permit jobs and didn't get, in advance work permits, the ones who started at 16 were getting their first jobs. I already had 4 by that time. What? I'm crazy. I'm telling you, hustle, baby. What I started to notice was that my friends all started to get jobs at the local grocery store. It was the same grocery store I had mentioned previously that was across the street from the strip mall where I was currently working at Radio Doctors. It was the Sentry Foods that was across the street. I told you about that intersection. The two parts of the intersection were essentially a railroad track, and then the other two sections, one was the strip mall on the northwest side, and on the northeast side of the intersection was a giant grocery store called Sentry Foods. Maybe 2 blocks away was another giant grocery store called Pick and Save. And Pick and Save and Sentry were pretty much the major 2 grocery stores in the city, or at least in Wauwatosa when I was growing up. The 2 rivals of grocery. Fun fact, my older brother worked at Pick and Save. He had been working there already. He's 4 years older than me. So I'm approaching my 16th birthday and he's approaching his 20th. He's been working there for already 4 years. He got a job when he was 16 working at the grocery store. Well, takes one to know one. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. What's the cliche here? So I'm looking at my friends all starting to get jobs as utility clerks, aka baggers, bag boys, checkout clerks, whatever you want to call us. The people, the kids, the youngins who would stand near the end of the checkout stand and bag your groceries. And guess what we said? I can hear you all saying it right now. Paper or plastic, ma'am? Paper or plastic, sir? Would you like paper or plastic, please? That was definitely my generation of paper or plastic. So I watched a bunch of my friends start to get jobs there. And when I say a bunch, 2 of them. 2 of them got jobs there, and they were making more money than I was. And they were having more hours than I was at the record store. I'm no dummy. I like math and I like money. So I'm hearing my friends working 25 hours, 30 hours a week at a higher rate. And mind you, it wasn't much. It was like $3.80. Right? It was like $3.80. Ooh, wow, 30 more cents? I'm coming over. Now, I got to be honest, because that's all I like to be, is honest with you. I'd have to really go back and try to remember if $3.80 was the exact rate. I will say safely, $3.75 to $3.80. It was a bump up in pay. So I'm across the street working barely 10 hours at $3.50 an hour, and my friends are rolling in dough because they're working 30 hours a week. Yeah, their weekend days are kind of cramped, and occasionally a weekend night. However, they were making money. And more money equals more video games, more D&D games, more trips to the arcade, more food, more things more CDs and albums and new headphones because I broke those old cheap ones. All of that made it look very enticing. So I went for it and I applied. Pro tip to anyone's listening out there, if you ever have to fill out a paper application in your life ever again, which I couldn't tell you. In 2020, I've been using resumes for so long, I honestly don't know what job or who or where has a tear-off paper application any longer. If you can tell me if you've recently applied for a job and you walked in and they pulled out a pad of paper and ripped off an application, please tell me in the comments, because I honestly do not know if that culture still exists in the internet world of easy to make resumes and LinkedIn and all the things. Share with me. Tell me what you know, because I don't know if that culture of paper pad applications still exists. But when I did fill them out, boy, did I use my best artistic penmanship to make it look clean and neat and easily readable. Don't use cursive. Don't be sloppy. If you mess up, maybe ask for a second application just in case you mess up. If you mess up, use whiteout. I don't know. Just either way, make it cute. Surprise, surprise. After having 4 jobs in 2 years, of course I landed the job. I had 2 friends that worked there too that could vouch for me. Yeah, Bob's great. He's amazing. He's our friend. Please hire him. Guess who got hired at Sentry Foods? And the more exciting fact, I don't know if that's the right word. I want to say the weird fact. It's a fact. Let's just put it out there. It's a fact. My first day of work was my 16th birthday. No joke, no lie, no shame. Get to know me moment. I never as a child or a teenager made a big thing, or my parents didn't really make a humongous deal out of my birthday or my brother's birthday for that matter. We had moments. Don't get it twisted. There were times, there were moments, there were cakes, there were celebrations, there were presents, there was love, but there was never my sweet 16 birthday and I get a car and a party. Like none of that mattered. None of it. Oh, you're 16? Great. You're 16. Get a job. That was it. I just wasn't a big birthday celebrator. Later in life, yes, I've had some amazing birthday bashes, unbelievable parties that I've been treated to or made for myself. Either way, at 16, it was not a big I need to celebrate my birthday and feel special about myself. Nope, none of that existed. I was more excited about the fact that I was finally getting a job that was going to pay me more. And then on top of that, have more hours. What a deal. Here was the trade-off, though. This is where things get spicy. So up to this point, again, we talked about foundations, and I haven't had a job or a boss that I have not liked. All my managers, all my bosses from all the jobs I've had up to this point, fine. I never had a problem. Never had a problem with the job. Didn't have a bad attitude about anything. Didn't get screwed over in any way. There was no weird job perception. I was just happy to be there. I'm here to work. What can I do? Oh, I'm getting paid. I'll be on time. I'll be in uniform. Whatever. What do you need from me? I'm there. I'm here to be. I'm building the foundation for the rest of my life, and it'll all go on my permanent record. So you better be good at it. I'm laughing because, looking back, it was 31 years ago. And if I knew then what I know now, may have been a different experience. I'm not going to crap on the job. It wasn't a bad job. It was hard labor. Again, I was used to that already. Had 2 dishwasher jobs and a paperboy job. So the idea of carrying things, carrying groceries, lifting bags, lifting groceries, carrying trash, all the things. Let me tell you the things. We were a utility clerk by name, but of course everyone called us baggers because 80% of the job was bagging groceries. It was a very customer support, customer service. Everybody was bagging all the time. There was a dip for a while. I want to say this in the grocery world. There was an absolute dip in grocery bagging for a bit when there was I know there was one when everyone was pushing for anti-plastic bags. I remember that was a big thing where they shortened the staff of utility clerks at grocery stores because they knew people were going to bring their bags anyway, and then so they didn't need everybody to touch your bags, and you just did it yourself. It was not a big deal. However, I think it's come back where people are actually putting your groceries in some sort of sack after this point. Moving forward, I did that job, and it had its challenges, absolutely. I had to learn things that I didn't do before. I had to learn how to use a pallet jack, stocking things. I mean, I wasn't a stocker. If I had to learn things about how grocery stores work, we had to learn about, barcodes and scanning and fruit and vegetable codes that the checkers put in, and, returns and all of the things, clean up detail, make sure the parking lot looks good. If there's garbage in the parking lot, go clean it up. And, last but not least, bringing in carts. Whew, that was a challenge. Again, building the foundations, these shoulders and these thighs and these calves got a muscle building workout as a growing teenager because, getting carts from the parking lot wasn't painful. It wasn't like, oh, I gotta go get carts. It was the additives to it that made it worse. When we were low on carts, getting all of the carts, when you had to clear the entire parking lot and walk end to end, it was It was a lot of work. It was a lot of chasing down the carts at the end of the cart, all the way at the end of the lot. And perspective moment, this is also during a time when they didn't have those wheel locks. You know, those things where they have the security bar and you can't move the cart after you get out of the place? That didn't exist. You could just roll that cart right out of the parking lot. And I'm sure people did. I'm certain of it. I remember seeing carts. I saw carts when I walked up the hill. It was not like a long way up the hill, but I know people rode their cart up the hill to that apartment building that I used to deliver papers to, because it was right up the hill and right around the corner. So if you really wanted to be lazy and not have to carry your groceries, you just got to roll it on wheels. I guess that would work. It was also, and again, I'm laughing inside and I'm laughing outside because I know I sound like the old man. Oh, you kids today, we had to walk barefoot in the snow uphill. Of course, when you had to get the carts all the way at the bottom of the hill, the labor. But once again, these shoulders and these calves don't lie. It was fine working with your friends. It was fine. We didn't really goof off too much. And because we knew we were in a work setting, we couldn't screw each other over, so to speak, and have horseplay and goof around. We had our moments. Don't get me wrong. The moments that we had of spraying each other with the seafood department's hoses or, whatever kind of dumb teenage horseplay friends can get into without getting into any real trouble was just fine. I didn't really mind bagging groceries. It was not a pain to me. I found that my organizational brain was really, really humming during this time because I was very much treating it like a video game, almost like a Tetris or a Clax. And yes, I name check Clax. If you're a fan, check me in the comments. Clax was a huge favorite of mine growing up. But yeah, I used to watch the groceries come down that conveyor belt, and I'd go, gotta get those cans in the bottom and make sure the eggs, put those aside, and the bread, don't squish the bread. Oh, these flours, I had it down to a science, and I still have that mild memorization of how to make sure to not crush things and make sure how to even out those bags plenty for your customers. You had the occasional customer, you get the paper plastic, ma'am, paper plastic. And, you had to find the right time to say that. And once you said it, and you didn't have too many problematic customers. You'd get an occasional Karen. And I want to tell everybody right now, I'm going to go on the record right now that there are absolutely, Karens have been in existence since I was a teenager. So all the Karen hype and the Karen, atmosphere that is out there right now, everything, this Karen energy that's around. Karen energy has been around since the mid 80s. I experienced it as a kid. Of course, when you're bagging groceries and you make them too heavy, or you're not doing it right, or you're not doing it the way they like. I mean, I had to endure Karenisms plenty during my time as a bag boy at Sentry Foods. The other interesting dynamic was your demeanor for the day and how your day was going to go sometimes was affected or depended on who you bagged groceries with. So if you had a checker that was, and I hate to use this term, but it's the term that you'll get when I say it, old battle axe, who was a lifer and hardened and didn't want any sass, and was the Karen's mom. You had these crotchety people sometimes that you had to work with who didn't want to hear it from a 16-year-old. You know what I mean? They had a mother instinct because they were mothers. They were there to, they didn't want us goofing off or being dumb. It was sometimes challenging working, and you had your favorite cashiers for sure, because the mood was lighter sometimes with your favorite cashier, of course, having a good time. They weren't mad if you had to step away. They didn't, try to, no, you need to bag for me. Like, there was no ownership game. If you got to your favorite cashier, you can lock it in until you got called away for carts or a cleanup, or, someone's got to change the toilet paper in the bathroom, or some sort of utility clerk deal. It was fun to be with your certain favorite cashiers. Of course, the more younger, the younger partier types were the favorite cashiers of mine because I was 16. Of course, I wanted to hang out with the younger people. I didn't want to, but I was sweet to the older ones. I was nice to everybody. I didn't, but definitely did have some types that was, I don't want to bag her groceries. She's so just not fun to be around. Whew. The challenge, I've talked about the carts before. The challenge of carts, it wasn't that, you had to push carts. It was sometimes during the summer when it was humid and 100 degrees out, so you're just sweating through your uniform. And other times it was during the winter when it's 0 degrees out and there's, a couple inches of slippery snow on the ground, covering those cartwheels and trying to sludge and trudge through all that, trying to get these carts back into the corral under the awning so that they were not just, constantly covered in snow. There are some days, whoo. And I remember there was always friendly competition between the friends of us. How many carts did you push? How many can you push up that hill? What's your record, man? I think my record was 26. I don't know if I had the top record. I remember I think at one point I had the top. They couldn't believe I pushed 26. But I was the fattest kid in the group, so I had more weight behind me to push that many carts. So whatever they did, I just, I made it better. It's how I do it. It was, as I said, there were challenges to the job, things I had not done before and learned about. I had learned how to bale cardboard. New task that I had never learned. Giant baler machine, this loud and smelly cardboard machine in the back room that you threw cardboard. All I remember is just throwing boxes in there. You actually have to smush this down and then compress it? Wow, let me do it. And we had to learn and get trained because safety first. And then I had to learn how to bale an entire bale of cardboard. And it's tough. It's messy, it's dirty, it's not easy to do. You got to thread a needle with wire and, get 3 of those in and make sure you tie them tight and have gloves on. And you got to push it and get it on a pallet. It's a pain in the butt. It's a big pain in the butt, but we did it. We also took out the trash. There were 2 giant trash compactor or trash bins in the front of the store outside. And then, of course, there were all the trash bins from the grocery Clerk stations. And then, there were ones over by the bakery and there's one over by the, seafood people. And you just walked around and collected all the trash for the day, brought it to the back right by the trash compactor and threw it in the big compactor and ta-da, right? A lot of backroom stuff too. There was, of course, the freezer place. There was all the damaged food. The back room always smelled of just dead grocery. It just was never a pleasant, fun smell. There was trash smell. There was, in the summer it made it worse because, of course, the heat just amplified the dumpster juice in the back of the grocery store, mixed with all the grease on the floor and the truck grease and all the pallet jack grease and everything. It's just gross. It was just dirty. The groceries were clean, but the floors and the pallets, it was just, warehouse messiness and grocery on top of that. So, of course, when you've got, spilled sodas, broken bottles, damaged, spaghetti sauce and all this, it's just messy. Everything's messy in the back. It was during an era too where this was during the time where people could return glass bottles that they bought from their 6-pack or 12-pack of glass bottled soda, and you could bring those bottles back to the grocery store. They would give you a return on them, and we would take them to the back and leave them for the Pepsi and Coke and the 7-Up dealers to come in and grab their bottles. They had to get their bottles. Of course, it was a mess because broken glass, lots of, we dropped that one case, glass everywhere. It was a practice that happened. We just returned, we have to get the bottle returns. There's, where are they? Pepsi's here. We got to get the bottle returns. It was a thing before just disposable recycling and recycling bins and places to put recyclables. Didn't exist. Brought back those bottles and those cans. We need to reuse the cans, but I know the PepsiCo and Coca-Cola definitely reused the bottles. The job wasn't too tough, as I had mentioned before. I I found the job challenging because I was a fat kid, not because I couldn't carry things or lift things and I didn't feel like I was unathletic enough to do the job. Oh no. It was one of those jobs that I felt that I was overdressed for. Back in the day, it was a white dress shirt, long sleeve, by the way, black slacks of some sort, usually a jean, but the jeans had to be black. They couldn't be like faded with holes in them. They had to be black jeans or some sort of black utility pants, a Dickies, if you will. And you had to have the uniform and you had to come in. It had to be clean and it had to be white. And we also were given aprons. We had red Sentry aprons with pockets and everything. And we had to take those home with us on the regular to wash them because, of course, carrying trash and cleaning things and just getting wet and whatever the case may be, they got dirty. So you couldn't just be walking around with this filthy, gross apron, even though you could have been clean. It can't be, here's this disgusting apron you're wearing. You had to regularly wash your aprons and be responsible. And that was probably the most challenging for me because, again, I was a fat kid. I didn't want to wear dress shirts and, ill-fitting pants and just, it was tough. But I got through it. I finally just, dealt with it, I guess. That was probably the most challenging part. Other than the personalities, there were definitely some stinkers in the group. And this was my first experience with that. This is my first experience with people I didn't want to work with or people I didn't like that I worked with. And this was also a union job. And at the time, I didn't really know what that meant. I didn't really have this sense of what union work was or what any of that truly meant for me. I knew that there was some level of rule sets that involved seniority and vacation times and, hours selection. The longer I was there, obviously, the more I climbed up the totem pole and the better hours I got. I got the more hours. I got the choice hours. I was not just given whatever was left. I was given, those early day, weekend days. So I can have my weekend nights. I was given, night shifts plenty. So I was almost working full time. I think I was short of that. I'm sure I was only working like 32 to 35 hours at the most. I'm sure there was some union rule about that. Like the minute you hit 40, I had to get benefits and some sort of, other compensation. I don't know. Either way, I was a part-time utility clerk and they kept me just under part-time, but I was still rolling in money. I mean, again, I was making more money and I had more hours. So those paychecks that used to be $50 or $60 or for 2 weeks, maybe I was making $80 for 2 weeks or $90. I thought, wow, $90. Wow. I mean, I was making that, I was making, 120, 130, 100. I was like, what? I mean, I was starting to make more money and it was great. $200, $250 on a paycheck. What do I do with all this money? Spent it. Obviously, that was the goal. Spend it on food, and we'll just go through that list again, right? Our arcade games, video games, Dungeons and Dragons, kid stuff, baseball cards, all the things, wrestling. We'll get to that in a second. There was also a huge changeover at this job for me as a person. I had already mentioned that I was kind of a nobody in high school. I didn't really do much, even though I thought I was cool, or at least I had some sort of cool clout because I had a CD player and I worked at a radio. I had an older brother. I worked at a record store at a Radio Doctors. So I wasn't necessarily cool, but I was left alone. I definitely wasn't like picked on for being a loser. I had some sort of clout. And so during this time, again, I will say this, I was dateless, promless, homecomingless, fairly sexless during high school. I didn't have any dates. I didn't have girlfriends. I didn't have boyfriends. I didn't have anything. I just got through high school, hanging out with friends, doing kid stuff, working a lot, burying myself in work, obviously, having 2 jobs and then now another one. I just didn't care. I was sort of just not looking at either sex as anything. I was just, everyone's going to prom, cool. I don't know. That's the way we can describe it. I wasn't against it. I wasn't anti-prom. I wasn't anti-homecoming, but I wasn't pro at all. I just kind of was like, oh, there's this dance thing, I guess. Well, I don't have a girlfriend. I don't like girls. I don't like boys either, but I just kind of sexually numb through high school. So there was this sort of ambiguity about me. And I was starting to really, again, get into pro wrestling. Oh, I thought it was I liked pro wrestling before. I liked the AWA. I liked local TV wrestling growing up in Milwaukee. But when the WWF ramped it up with that Saturday morning cartoon and Hulk Hogan and the Real American, eat your prayers and say your vitamins, and I am all Mr. T and Roddy Piper and the whole Andre the Giant and the Jimmy Snoop, all that early stuff. And then it turned into even more. My God. Or as JR would say it, by God. I put too much Y in there. By God. I was really elbow deep in wrestling fandom during that time. So here's this just rough and tumble chubby kid who's non-sexual, is not showing any feathers either way, and is just kind of getting through school and working and being a dork. It's fine. Lo and behold, I connected with and started working with, in my later time in Sentry land and the grocery store land, because remember, I graduated high school at 17. I skipped second grade. I just turned 17 in February, and then by June, I was graduating high school. So I was only 17. Lo and behold, this lovely new cashier shows up at Sentry. I'm just getting out of high school. She's already been in college, I believe. And if she watches this, she can correct me. We'll have a conversation. Maybe she can paint the timeline of this. I believe she had already been in college for 6 months to a year before I even scratched that surface. I graduated at 17, so I started going to college. There's a whole story about that as why I went to college and not became a pro wrestler, but that's for another podcast and another time. However, I started going to college. I went to the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. Graduated 1990. Parents were like, go to college. Took the SATs, took whatever I needed to take, got admitted, got okay to go to University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. Before I got there, and after I got there, a new checker by the name of Lynn showed up at Sentry Foods. Lynn and I got along famously. And soon enough, once I appeared at the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and our paths crossed and actually connected in the same areas of college, and the same groups of people, and the same connected people that we all hung out with, Lynn and I became real good friends. Lynn was awesome. And I shouldn't say was, she still is awesome. She's probably a 1,000 times more awesome than she was back then. But Lynn was a cool cat, and Lynn and I got along really well. So I loved bagging groceries at Lynn's checkout stand. She, of course, took a liking to me. We got along great. College shows up, getting along great. And Lynn, because she's in college and I'm still in high school. This is, again, she showed up before I got out of high school. And I'm still in high school, and she's telling me about, what are you doing? What are you doing this weekend? What are you doing Saturday night? Oh, I'm going to Rocky Horror Picture Show. I've heard of this. I think I know about this because I went to this once, but I had gone to it once before with a high school friend, and I didn't get it at all. I was like, why am I here? Why are people throwing rice in my face? I don't understand this. And I just didn't get it. I really didn't. I didn't hate it, but I was like, this is all too much for a 16-year-old to understand. So there I am turning, 16 and a half, 17 years old. I'm now 17. I haven't graduated high school yet, but I'm not 18 yet. And Lynn's like, yeah, I'm going to Rocky Horror Picture Show. And I was like, oh, I know about this. I went to it once. I feel like I need to go to it again. And she's like, come with me, my baby. What I didn't know then, and I I sure know now, Lynn knew I was gay before I did. She knew, just like a mother does. My mom knew before I did. My dad knew before I did. Everybody knew before I did. But Lynn definitely knew before I did. And when she took me to Rocky Horror, I could likely safely say that she had an ulterior motive. It wasn't the full purpose. I mean, she had her friends there. She had the experience there. She knew people. I mean, she knew people. She knew people. I'm sure there was a part of her that was like, I'm gonna guess that this boy that bags groceries for me and now I'm friendly with, I feel like there's a rainbow child in there. And she takes me to Rocky Horror and I got it. I figured it out. I didn't figure myself out, but I was like, don't dream it, be it. Yeah. And it stuck with me. Don't dream it, be it. Don't dream it, be it. It's still a concept. It's not like a direct straight line. Well, I'll just stop dreaming it and I'll just be it. As you will learn through this podcast and videocast adventure, sometimes you will dream something and you will be it later on in life. You're looking at the manifestation of that. I dreamt of being involved in pro wrestling since I started liking it, since I was so invested into it in high school. Oh my gosh, I went to every show. I got in the subscriptions. I was in the fan club. Just engulfed in the fandom of WWF wrestling. Couldn't get enough. So the whole level of Lynn kind of knowing who I was just there. And Rocky Horror Picture Show brought it out. Don't dream it, be it. I dreamt about being involved in pro wrestling for almost 30 years. And here we are, kids. Don't throw away your dreams. Just pocket them for later because they may show up when you least expect it. That's the lesson. That's the successories poster that you get for this episode. Don't dream it, be it means something really deep to me because of my Rocky Horror Picture Show experience, thanks to Lynn, my favorite cashier at Sentry Foods. The job was, the same. It was just the continual same boring bag groceries, clean up things, smell like garbage, carry carts, all the same. There's another layer that I'm about to expose about this job it could be a whole episode by itself, but I'll try to keep it brief because you have time and it's Monday. We have to get through this, darlings. I was, for lack of a better term, a teenage thief. Oh, I was a teenage thief. And when I say thief, I'm not going to paint this picture like I was involved in jewel heists and casino robberies. I was a shoplifter and a petty thief. Child. It all started when I was a mere child in the mean streets of Bayview. I think my first taste of shoplifting was, of course, growing up poor and going to the corner store, like it was called the White Hen Pantry, which was the equivalent of the 7-Eleven at the time for us in the south side of Milwaukee. And I remember I knew my dad wasn't going to buy me that thing of Starburst, and I knew that I didn't have money as a young child, so I guess I'll just put it in my pocket. And to get rid of the evidence as quickly as possible, I'll try to covertly open the package and shove as much candy in my mouth as possible until I couldn't fit anymore and spit it out and got busted by my dad. But that's another story. There was 2 times, actually I take that back. There was one time during my early teenage years when we first moved to Wauwatosa. My brother was 14 and I was 10. And we had got caught shoplifting at a Walgreens we had shoplifted baseball cards, and we're talking quarter a pack baseball cards. Topps, Donruss, Fleer. There wasn't even Upper Deck yet. There was no score. There was nothing. It was Topps and Donruss and Fleer. That was it. And I had well over $11 worth of baseball card packages and stickers stuffed in my winter coat. And yeah, boy, did we disappoint my parents that day. But the thievery did not end. When I should have brought up in my Paperboy episode, there was at least twice that I may have, perhaps, possibly, a 10 or 12 pack of Columbia House CDs may have somehow fell into my big giant yellow paper bag during a delivery hour at 5 in the morning. Maybe. I don't know. Were there cameras? Did anybody catch it? No? Okay, good. But yeah, no, I was a shoplifter. That was about it. There was no like, I'm going to steal money. I never thought about stealing cash or other possessions that I didn't want just to have them for cash. I stole the things that I want. I stole baseball cards. I once attempted to steal a video game, almost got caught. Whew, that's another long story of my teenage thievery. I'll put that one in the epilogue. But yeah, I will tell you this, when I worked at Sentry and I started there, no intention of stealing. Zero. I got caught once. I was good. I never thought, there was never a time in my entire career that I started a job and going, boy, I can't wait to start working here. And I also can't wait to start stealing from this place. That was never on my mind. Again, raised Catholic guilt, cloud over my head. You're going to get caught. Someone will find out eventually. Like, I never had that in the playbook. Until I got to Sentry Foods and where my friends were working, and there were bad influences. But I don't blame them. We were all teenagers and we were friends. I'm saying that from a voice of a parent. Those kids were bad influences on you, young man, stealing things from your job. How could you? I don't know how it started. I don't know where it began. I don't know who brought it up first. I don't know who did it first out of our circle of friends that worked at Sentry. Because by this time, I want to say a good year into the job. And yeah, I kept this job I think I had it for a good year and 3/4. There was, I think, 5 of us out of the 6 or 7 that hung out. We all worked at Sentry and we all were friends. You see it coming, right? Here are the thievery moments that we explored and I definitely got away with. Sorry, Sentry Foods. I know it's been 30 plus years, but here's what I got away with all my friends. When we took trash from the front, they were in these large, giant Rubbermaid plastic brown containers with big lids, and you would take the lids off, leave them outside, carry the trash, or you'd leave them inside. You had to carry the trash bins or get the trash to the back. So you would typically just lift the entire trash bin onto a giant flat cart or a pallet jack and roll it into the store. So you can roll it to the back, past the dairy and the freezer section, all the way to the back corner, and then you would empty the trash into the trash bin. Somebody got the bright idea. I guarantee you, Scouts Honor. Is that how you do it? Scouts Honor? Scouts Honor. It was not me who came up with this idea, but whoever did, it was brilliant. You would take the trash into the back, but before you did that, you'd put returns back and you'd walk around the store and you'd find a box of baseball cards, or you'd find a 12-pack of beer that was already in the back, or you would, a 12-pack of soda, a case of beer. But for me, it was always baseball cards and baseball stickers. Always. And I didn't do it too often because you didn't want to saturate the market and just steal every day you worked and da-da-da-da. You had to pace it out every once in a while. And you had to talk to your friends. I mean, we didn't have a thievery circle, but we definitely communicated, hey man, I'm going to take some cards today. Okay, so you knew, cool it for a week or two. Don't just keep doing it because they'll catch on real fast. Well, you would go into the back, take the trash out, but before you put the new trash bag in, you would put another trash bag in there with the product that you wanted. And you would make sure to do it outside of camera range. There were certain areas that were not covered by cameras. So you did the normal trash thing on camera, and then you would walk away. And as you were walking away, you would grab the bag because you knew as you turned that corner, you were not on camera. And as you did it, you would throw the bag in there. You would put the top on and magic. Oh, how did you get away with it at the end of the night? Well, it was 11 o'clock at night on like a Wednesday. Nobody's at the grocery store. This was before 24-hour grocery stores being 24 hours all the time. No, we closed at like midnight. So you were out of there by like 11 o'clock, 10:30. Nobody was at the grocery store. One or two people. You just walk out, make sure the coast is clear, hang out there for a second, pretend you're folding up your apron, do a little sweep with your eyes, lift up that lid, and walk away with your bag of whatever, your treats that you threw in that trash can. Another way you could get away with thievery was you would go to the deli on your lunch break, your union-sponsored lunch break, and you would go. And they had like a register there, but the key to doing it was you kind of wanted to make sure it was a little busy. You didn't want it to just be the only person in the store and then you walk up there and go, hey, they had a cash register there, but you went over there and you'd order like a fresh sub or, hey, can I get some this or some of that, some lunch meat and some cheese. And then you'd walk over to the bakery and get a bun or 2 buns, Kaiser rolls. And the trick was, instead of ringing up your food at the deli for your break, you would tell the deli person, hey, I'm going to go grab some sauce. I don't know, some mayonnaise. I don't know what you were going to go get. You would make up some lie. I'm going to go get some soda from aisle 10. And you would walk out of the deli, look like you were going towards the front, towards the cashiers. But then you would make a bolt up one of the aisles, or you wouldn't bolt, but you would just casually walk up the aisles and then casually walk into the back where the dairy and the freezer section was, and you'd walk into the back where the trash was, and you'd walk up those stairs, and you would just go up to the break room and start eating your lunch. Whoops! Ha ha! Yeah, that was, and then the third piece of thievery that I didn't let anyone in on. I felt that if I was going to steal for my job, that it was one of those moments that was like, I can't let other people in on this. I'm just going to do it and see if I get away with it. And oh my God, did I get away with it. Fun being a fat kid in the Midwest because you always kind of looked fat in coats. So when I would leave my shift and come down the other side, so one way out or one way from downstairs was where the dairy and freezer section was, but the other way was where the seafood area was and the meat section was and the produce section was. There was another door to come out of the back from the upstairs break room area in the grocery store. And you come out the back and then you leave out the front. Well, the main aisle that you could, or actually it was sort of half and half, but you could see where that entrance was the magazine aisle. Pretty much every night for quite a few weeks. I would say months, in fact. It wasn't a couple weeks because issues didn't come out that often unless you were People Weekly. But I would stop at the magazine rack on the way out of the grocery store. I clocked out. I got my apron in my hand, got my coat on. I'm just going to flip through this Pro Wrestling Illustrated. And, it just slid down my shirt. Because you'd open up your shirt a little bit just to get some air. Oh, I'm going to tuck put that right between my waistband and just stuff it in the waistband, close up the coat. And of course, because I was a fat kid, those jeans were tight. They were not loose by any means. And I had a belt so I could tighten them if I wanted to. And I would just gladly walk out of the grocery store, say goodnight to all my cashiers. Oh, good night, everybody. Yeah, good night, blah, blah. And walk up the hill and whoop, just pull out my magazine that I got. And of course, I'd put it back in before I got in the house because I didn't want my parent. Where'd you get that magazine? You spending all your money on magazines? No, we kept that for my parents too. So I had a whole lot of wrestling magazines that maybe my parents thought I paid for. Sorry, Sentry Foods, I didn't pay for this. I probably had a good year's worth of WWF magazines and spotlights and, programs from SummerSlam from 1988 and 89. So thanks, Sentry Foods. What started as a fun way to get away with thievery soon ended very quickly. Ooh. One night, I slept over at my friend Dan's house. Video games, hanging out. Cool. Let's watch MTV until we fall asleep. Sounds great. I have to work at Sentry in the morning. Sounds great. Okay. I'm still at his house because I only lived like 5 blocks away. So it wasn't like, oh man, I stayed at his house. I hope my mom can get me. I mean, I just got up, put on my clothes, said goodbye to his mom and dad or whatever, and just walked home. No big deal. Well, I got a call at his house from his home phone. No cell phones. This was ringing on the home phone. His mom brings the phone in and he wants to talk to me. Hey, Bob. So I got fired today from Sentry. What? Why? Oh no, the thief ring has been broken. Somehow. And I can't remember how Dan got fired. I literally cannot remember how they found him or caught him doing it. I don't remember the exact circumstances, but they caught him and they fired him. Crap. Oh no. The trust circle has been broken. Shut it down. And we did. I did. I mean, for sure. When I found out my best friend just got fired from the grocery store that I was also working at for stealing, I was no dummy. Of course, they were going to start looking at the other friends, the people that are hanging out with each other after work and being real cozy with each other at work because we're friends. So the ring collapsed, right? I was like, I'm not stealing another thing, right? I was scared. Nothing. I stopped it, but my friends didn't. My friend Jason didn't. Totally got busted stealing. He got busted stealing paid stickers from the deli. So he did that whole deli theft game too, where it's like, oh, I'm going to go pay for it up front and walk around the grocery store. And then he would just wander upstairs. Well, he also would collect the fluorescent orange paid stickers. So when somebody paid for something at the deli, and then he did actually walk around the grocery store, went to the grocery counter, it was seen as paid. They kind of followed him and figured out he was stealing from the deli. And then they made him open up the locker that he had upstairs in the break room. And it was like the locker inside of it had like a plethora of not only stolen goods, but then also paid stickers. Fired. Oh, what were my friends thinking? We had it so good for so long. What were they doing? Enjoy that breath, because I needed to take a deep one. The wagons were circling. They knew there was something going on. The friends, they're looking for any excuse. Oh, we know there's something going on here. My friend Eric got fired as well for, I believe, one of the dumbest reasons, I think. It was something involving old produce. He had to take a trash bin to the back of like old apples or apples that were not of quality or something to that effect. And this one manager, I don't remember his name, but he was the manager nobody liked. He was the company snitch. He was the dork that was the company man and didn't complain or waver in any way, shape, or form about, he was the company guy, this third in command and always kissing up to Chuck, the manager, and it was just we hated that manager when he was on duty. It was just like no fun whatsoever. He followed Eric into like the back where the trash was, and Eric like grabbed one of the apples out of the boxes he was going to throw away anyway, took a couple bites out of it, threw it with the box. No harm, no foul, right? Wrong. Apparently, this manager went into the compactor to grab that apple that he bit into as evidence. And it was presented to him in the office as theft. You ate on company time and this is still company property. What? I knew I was like, oh boy, keep your nose clean, kid. They're coming for you because they fired 3 of your friends so far. They are absolutely, I could feel the lasers on the back of my head, so I kept my nose clean. Oh, I kept it clean. Now, mind you, by this time, Lynn wasn't even working there, so I didn't really have any friends. I didn't have any, I had friends, but I didn't have any, like, tight allies that I'd be like, oh, Lynn, you're like, I was kind of left all by myself on Survivor Island there. Like, oh. And it came down to me doing one of those, well, if you can't do this, then I quit moments. I did not get fired, luckily. I kept my reputation clean, but it was a weird situation where I was like number 2 or 3 or 4. I was definitely in the top, for sure in the top 5, but I know I was like number 4 on the seniority list because I'd been there like a year and a half. And for teenage utility clerks, that seemed like a lifetime to them, obviously, because I was so up there. I think the other 2 people there were like there for like 5 years. They had just lifers as utility clerks. I don't get it either. It's fine. But there are older people that worked as utility clerks. It wasn't all teenagers. The crux of the matter was I asked for a certain weekend off to go on some weekend camping thing. And they kind of screwed me over in some weird, well, I have seniority and I asked for it. And their argument or counterpoint was, well, we can't give you it off. And I was just defiant and said, well, I asked for it in plenty of time and I'm 4th in seniority and you should just be able to give it to me off. And they crossed their arms and I said, well, then I'm just going to have to quit then. And I did. I was so unhappy with how they were, because again, you could feel the laser burn on the back of my head. They were looking for a way for me to not work there because they probably suspected if all of us walked like a duck and talked like a duck, I was a duck. But I was the duck who got away with it because they never caught me and I never got even close to being caught. There was never a moment of like, that was close, because I was so terrified of losing my job or getting fired. I was still living at home. I couldn't get fired from my job for stealing. Are you kidding me? Oh no. But it came down to a struggle over having a weekend off that I asked for, but because they found their opening, they decided to be jerks to me about it. And instead of having any sort of understanding, they just decided to cross their arms, as I said. And I was like, well, I'm going to cross my arms too, and I'm going to cross my arms and take that camping trip that I paid for and I'm going on. Sorry, Sentry, here's my apron. Have a great day. And I did it. I walked. I definitely had a lump in my throat. I felt guilt because I was like, oh no, I don't have a job. What am I going to do? Dun, dun, dun. Remember, don't quit your day job until you have another one. Well, I was left without a job, which put on the afterburners for me to step up the hustle because I could not live at home without a job and just quit a job because I just wanted a weekend off. My next goal after that camping trip was to find the next job. And I did, which you will find out about this Friday on a sparkling new episode of New Job Who Dis. Thank you for tuning in. I know this was a long one, dears, but there are stories to be told. I left out a story. I wrote one down here on my paper, and I left one out. I'll put it in the epilogue. It has been a pleasure, as always. This has been New Job Who Dis. I am your host, Halston Body. Please subscribe. Please like. Please comment. Please share with a friend. Please, as I say, tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell your mom, tell your dad, tell your sister, tell your brother. Tell everyone. I'm Halston Body. This has been New Job Who Dis. Please subscribe. Please like. This podcast is, of course, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the Podbean network and app. Please find me on YouTube. As always, HALSTONBODDY. Why? Because you should subscribe. Thank you for listening. We'll see you on Friday. This has been New Job Who Dis?